I've become deeply troubled by what I see happening in higher education today. The federal financial aid system is in serious peril, not just because of budget cuts in Washington, but because of the actions of many for-profit colleges. There are good for-profit schools that deserve a place in America's options for higher education. They offer flexible schedules, and many provide high-quality education and efforts at education, which many schools that have been around for a long time can learn from. But as is often the case, many of these better schools fear oversight and accountability. They close ranks to protect what I characterize as the bottom feeders in their industry and suffer for the sins of their unscrupulous colleagues. I'm not going to shed any tears for the bad press that comes to these for-profit colleges. As you'll hear from some of our witnesses here, much of it is well-deserved. I'm concerned for the students, burdened with unreasonable student loan debts and worthless diplomas. One of the claims you see most often in the ads for-profit colleges is that they offer a passport to the middle class for low-income students who for too long have been shut out of college. Sound familiar? It's the same pitch that was used to sell risky, overpriced, subprime mortgages to people who for too long had been locked out of home ownership. We know how that story ended. We can't afford to repeat that mistake when it comes to student loans. Unlike a mortgage, student loans are not dischargeable in bankruptcy. So those loans will be with these students for the rest of their lives. We can't afford to saddle a generation of young people with mountains of debt and worthless diplomas. And we can't afford to see taxpayers' dollars wasted, sending billions of dollars of Pell Grants to for-profit schools that aren't providing a good return on investment. Over the past 10 years, enrollment in for-profit colleges has increased 236%. Industry growth has been fed by increasing federal revenue. These are private companies, but they are heavily subsidized by the federal government. For-profit colleges educate less than 10% of all college students, less than 10%. But they consume 25% of all Pell Grant dollars and student loans. In 2009, that amounted to more than $20 billion in federal student loans and more than $4 billion in Pell Grants. For-profit college students who earn bachelor's degrees graduate with an average $31,000 in debt. Compare that to nonprofit colleges, $17,000. Public universities, $7,000. Almost 25% of students who attend for-profit colleges default on their student loans within the first 3 years. 11% of those graduating from public college do, 8% of those graduating from private nonprofit colleges. I think it's pretty clear what's going on here. We are dramatically subsidizing for-profit schools. They are charging students dramatically more to go to school. The students are going more deeply in debt than if they'd attended other schools, community colleges, public colleges, even private colleges that are not-for-profit. And at the end of the day, after 3 years, they are defaulting on their student loan debt. They're not earning enough money to pay off their debt. Who loses? Well, one of the losers is going to be the taxpayer, because the money that should be coming back in the Treasury from the repayment of student loans isn't. And so we're more pressure in Washington for us to fund more student loans to make up for those in default. And these students, and you'll hear from some of them today, burdened for a lifetime with a debt for going to a school that didn't lead to a job.